Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rise and Recreate podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Shanny, and today we have our very first guest, and I am so excited for you to hear her story. So let's welcome Tara from TSW Life Coaching. Her life mission is to help others return to home, to the beauty of their true essence, and follow their soul's path, which is very in line with what we do here at Rise and Recreate. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. How are we doing today? Give us a brief introduction of who you are.
Oh, I'm good. I didn't realize I was your first guest. That's exciting.
Yes.
Woohoo! Congratulations. Um, so I am from TSW Life Coaching. I'm the soulpreneur. I started it. Well, we'll get into why I started it because I know that that's kind of the story that we kind of talked about. But yeah, I do energy work. I do soul alignment sessions, and I help people really come back home to themselves, their true selves. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I'm so excited to hear the journey of how you ended up here. So, could you just walk us through what your life looked like before you understood what your soul's path was?
So, uh, I was a social worker for 22 years. I worked in the human services field, so lots of social work type things, like with children family services and things like that. And so I've always wanted to help people. And of course, having that drive in me, social work was just kind of the natural path for me to go because I always wanted to help people. And then when my husband got sick, that was kind of my awakening, we'll call it, where I realized I was, unbeknownst to me at the time, playing small and not really doing what my soul was calling for, which was that deeper work that, um, yeah, deeper work is kind of the best way to say it. Yeah.
Definitely. So, when you were doing the social work, do you think you fell into that path because that was just something you knew? You knew, okay, this is a way for me to help people, and you couldn't really see past that vision at that point?
Oh, totally. I think that's a great way of saying it. I think, so I'm an empath. And so all along, I knew I definitely wanted to help people. And that drive is so strong within me. And there was a part of me, I've always been semi spiritual. Um, but there was a part of me that was like, well, that's not really accepted, or that's not really the to do thing. And so it was like social work, that's socially acceptable.
Hmm.
That's a title, that's all the things. But doing it, what I realized was, and I definitely was helping people, but it felt more like it was a band aid. And I knew all along, like looking back now, I knew all along it was helping, but it wasn't really helping at a core level. It wasn't really making the sustainable changes that people wanted to make or that their souls were calling for. It was just more so, I always say it was like putting a band aid on a bullet hole. It just was not, it was just surface level stuff. And so yes, the social work was definitely, and so many skills and so much knowledge I gained from that I still use today, but definitely in a different way.
Absolutely. That was a good analogy of just covering it up, not getting to the deeper layers of what it is that actually helps people change from within. So, what I heard was that there was almost a box that you had put yourself in where you did have this little seed of, I think I know what I actually want to do, but it's not socially accepted, which is just a belief that you had created, right? And attached onto. So, can you take us back to when you almost like shattered that belief and you were like, you know what, this is something that I can do and I'm capable of?
What a great question. Um, I'd say there's layers of it because owning this, and I call it coming out of the spiritual closet, can be very difficult because it's not definitely academically accepted. And so, like doing the energy work or doing the belief system changes and things like that. especially because that was about 10 years ago. So it was very woo woo at that time.
Mhm.
And so there was layers. And I've said it before. I feel like I had milestones too crazy is what I call it. It's like how much I will accept. And it's like, okay, I'll go this far. And it was kind of like I had to put these little boxes, like you said, around it. It was like, and that was partially for the conditioned part of me, the egoic part of me, to be okay with it. Because if you just like jump out of the spiritual closet and it's like, here I am, it felt very intimidating. So I needed to kind of take steps. And there's lots of wounding with that too. Um, I call it the witch wound because I'm taking that word back. Um, but like things like that where your soul's wounded and scared of taking that step because it's like, I've done this before in a past life
Mhm.
and it didn't work so well for me.
Mhm.
And so there's definitely that, let's do what's culturally acceptable and not do the woo woo and the crazy, because it just felt easier. And so I took steps to kind of recondition myself. And it's recondition myself and to let go of that societal conditioning that we have so that I could step more into what my soul was calling me to do.
Absolutely. So with the I love that too of just jumping right out of the spiritual closet. It can be a lot on your nervous system.
Oh, yeah.
What the heck am I doing? What are people going to think of me? Am I a little crazy? What are all of these emotions I'm experiencing? So, during this journey of slowly stepping out of the spiritual closet, were there certain tools you used to calm your nervous system and help you feel safe in this new belief that you were forming?
Um, so many tools, so very many tools. Like I said, a lot of my social work stuff came in. A lot of practice of mindfulness. I worked a lot with that. Somatic work, trauma release, the energy healing work that I do definitely helped. Um, I use that consistently to help me. I do some belief system repatterning and stuff like that. So releasing the energy around old beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and bringing in new self-serving beliefs and new truths. Um, so much stuff. And a lot of it I was guided to. And the more I went along, the more the guidance came. And so I always say it's like your soul is kind of, I don't want to say tangled up, but covered in like a ball of yarn, and it knows how it needs to untangle, including the nervous system. And so allowing it to do it naturally rather than, you know, pushing it to do it the way you think it should be. There's a definite path that your soul wants to take that uncovers it in an easier way.
That's such a beautiful point to bring up because I think sometimes when people go down the spiritual path, they still have these thoughts and these beliefs of there is a certain way I need to do it. I need to have a morning routine and I need to wake up every day and I need to do my breath work and then I need to do my yoga and then I need to sit in silence for 5 minutes. And the way you just described it of your soul knows how it wants to untangle itself is there are a variety of tools that we all have access to, and there's not a certain path that you have to take in order to quiet the mind and really tune into yourself. So when you started to hear the soul's calling and you're going through all of these tools and figuring out which ones work best for you, was there a way that you could differentiate what your soul intuition was saying versus what your logical brain was saying you should
Yeah.
do?
Such a great question. Um, yes. So what I've learned is when your soul speaks to you and your intuition is your soul speaking to you and your higher self speaking to you. And when that, and your guides in there too, and your team and everything else, when they're speaking, it's always from love. And what I noticed is the conditioned mind is frantic and it's always from fear because that's the box that you talked about.
Mm.
The conditioned egoic mind likes the little box. likes to be comfortable. Because what I realized early on was all of that is my wounds. And so the conditioned mind picked up all of my wounds and then is trying to keep me safe. And so it tries to keep you in that little box so you're safe, um, not knowing that your soul is multidimensional, your soul is eternal, your soul is wonderful and beautiful and knows the way. It tries to keep you in that box because it's what it knows, and it knows it from the wounds. So it's very much trauma responses and things like that. And being an empath, which I saw you nod your head, so I'm guessing you are too.
Very much so.
Yeah. And so a lot of times those trauma responses are really deep because for empaths, you're not only feeling your own stuff, you're feeling everyone else's stuff. Or if you're claircognizant, then you're thinking other people's things. And so it really, the biggest challenge for me was really what you asked about deciphering between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the monkey mind and the everything that I'd taken on from all of being an empath, the joy of being an empath,
Mm-hmm.
and having to sort that out from what's my truth. And just learning to know that how it feels within my body and know the difference between it.
That is true. And it is coming back in tune with yourself to realize what is mine and what is not, particularly when you are an empath. And so when you realized that, okay, there is a difference between things that I'm taking on from other people, sometimes not even consciously, like when we're just around other people, sometimes their energy just kind of melds right in with our energy. For me, learning how to differentiate this was doing a lot of energy work, and just the more I tuned into my own body, the more I could realize what was mine and what was not. But for somebody who is just now realizing that maybe they're carrying a lot of other people's energy within, what advice would you give them to be able to differentiate between the two?
Um, well, first thing, congratulations, because it takes people a long time to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
As empaths, we're born that way. And so we automatically pick up patterns that help us deal with the chaos around us, no matter what childhood was like for us. But if you're feeling that sensitive, you're picking up so much. And so there's patterns that you pick up that are, say, self-soothing, let's say.
Mm.
And so, and part of that is being the peacemaker, soaking people's energy up, just because if I take it, then it's calm around me and I can breathe.
Uh-huh.
And so, hitting it on the nose there.
Yeah.
And so and they become so automatic that you don't even really realize. It's not till later when you're like, oh, I am a little bit different than everyone else. Um, and you start to realize that you're an empath, then you start to untangle those patterns. And and then it's just a matter of, like I said, the energy work, it was huge for me in recognizing and untangling those patterns and letting them go, because they became such a part of me that, I mean, there's still layers, because as I'm sure you know, in the spiritual path, it's layers, and it's a spiral, and you keep learning. Um, but you definitely get to know what it feels like when it's yours and when it's not yours.
Mm-hmm. This is such an interesting path that we're going down right now, because I feel like, too, for people who are empathic, and this, of course, goes for everybody, as you grow up, you do tend to just be put in boxes that you didn't even put on yourself, like societal boxes, the way your parents raised you, etc. And that typically lays out one certain path for you to go down, which typically isn't the journey that you actually came here to live. And for empaths, I feel like there might be even a bit more pressure for you to go down somebody else's path, because you've absorbed so many people's ideals for you and taken them on as your own without even realizing it at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know you said there was a pretty big point where you were like, okay, I'm not living in alignment with what it is that I came here to do. So if you could just take us through now with the knowledge you have now, looking back, what did it feel like in your body to not be living in alignment with your truth?
I can say now, I can work all day now, not tired. Like it's not exhausting. But I know when I was social working, I was exhausted all the time. And I didn't get to burn out. Like I didn't get to that point, but I was pretty close. And I'd say every day it probably was. Like I didn't get to the point of burnout like you think of, like I didn't quit or anything. It was kind of what happened that I ended up changing my career path. But yeah, the like I just heavy, exhausted, and burnt out pretty much. Yeah.
And then, so when you were getting ready to change your career path, and you said you spent 22 years in social work, so that's a pretty long time. That's time enough to be very comfortable in your heaviness and denseness. You're like, well, this is just what it is. I guess I accept it until you realize, you know what? No, I don't accept this, and I want to create a business. What did that look like for you when you were thinking of what it was you actually wanted to do?
It kind of came organically, and it wasn't, I have to say, I have to be honest, it wasn't my conscious choice. I'll say it was the passing of my husband that kind of pushed me into my spiritual awakening, more so, and pushed me off of the path, because definitely with his loss it felt easier to go back into comfort, and the discomfort of comfort, let's say, or the unknown or the uncertain, was not at all comfortable with the grief. And so, but it just kept pushing me that way. The universe just kept pushing me that way. And I can look back now and go, like, I'm so grateful for that, because like I said, what I do now compared to what I used to do, it just fills me. It fulfills my
Mm-hmm.
soul. It fulfills me. And so, and I, like I said, it's totally different. I think if I would have kept on, if I would have pushed harder and kept on the same path, I definitely wouldn't be doing that anymore. Um, I would definitely have been burnt out by now, because the amount of stuff I've had to unpack, of all of the stuff I took on that I didn't realize I was taking on.
It's interesting how you said when you were going to continue down that journey that you were on, you would have had to push harder. So that means like you knew inside you were meant for something else, and you would have had that resistance got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so when you were tapping in and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it, I'm going to create my own business, I'm sure a lot of fears came up of what if it doesn't work and all of those things. If you could walk us through the fears that did arise and how you carried yourself through those fears and kept moving forward.
Oh my goodness, so many fears. um, Along with, like, we talked about the spiritual kind of fears of coming out of the spiritual closet. Uh, there's of course the business stuff. I know nothing about business. I was a social worker. What do I know about that? All those beliefs came up, all the conditioned beliefs, um, about what it means to be a good business owner, or what that means and how it should look and everything else. And the more I moved along, the more I realized how much that's all conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
and how much it's, yeah, it's conditioned into us. It was like, oh, this is going to be hard work. Doesn't have to be. It If you move in alignment, it's never hard work, because you're with the flow of it rather than against it. Anything, and that's a great way that I look now, even when I try to do something for my business now. If I'm not going with the flow of things and I'm trying to push something because I think it's the right thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
or the business thing to do, it never flows. I write, I've written for a couple books, and same thing. If I try to sit and make myself write and go, okay, we're going to put our chapter together, if it's not flowing, I don't push it anymore. I've learned to let that go and work through that conditioning about how you have to do it in a certain way, because like you'd said, there's no one way. There's your way, and your soul knows your way. And so And that's also another part of it too, is um, when I was kind of awakening and coming into my spiritual self, I very much created a spiritual, I call him the spiritual overlord, but I created this spiritual ego that was like, okay, like you said, you have to be up at this time, you have to meditate this much, you have to do this, and you can never say this, and you have to be love and light, and there's no shadow, and all of that. Be positive, and it's like, whoa, and it became like a whole other ego. And it's like the spiritual ego or the spiritual overlord, like I said, I like to call mine, because it was very much almost harder to deal with, because a lot of the conditioned things I knew were not truth for me, but very much the spiritual overlord, what it's preaching is truth, but it's doing it in a very regimented way.
That's the best picture. I'm a very visual person, and so now I can see that in my head, and I did that too. I definitely did that too, where I thought even my spiritual journey had to look a different way. And through this conversation, I think a key point that I'd just like everybody to really anchor into is the resistance versus the flow. And for myself, even starting this podcast, I've wanted to do this for like a year. And the ways that I kept thinking of doing it just didn't feel right, didn't feel right. And then one day it clicked, and I was like, this feels great. This is how I want to do it. And through that momentum of it feeling like natural instead of the resistance, things have just unfolded so beautifully just in the past week.
And that is so a beautiful story of how it works. When we're in alignment, everything flows. It just does. And the universe provides for us because we're in flow. But the minute we get into that conditioning, whatever conditioning it may be, and we try to make things happen and we try to control, then things don't flow easy. It's we're totally going upstream, and so that's, like I said, that's a point for me that I always, does this feel hard? Does this feel like I'm walking against the water? If it does, then I stop and I'm like, nope, this is not the time. Doesn't mean I'm never going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
or that it was a bad idea, or not the way I'm going to go. It just means now it's not flowing. So that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's always a call for me to come back to myself and go, okay, what is it that I want right now? Or what is it that I'm being called to do right now? Because that's going to flow despite what my ego wants to do.
Exactly. So, what would you say to a listener right now who just had that aha moment of, oh, I have definitely been trying to control things? What would you say to them of some steps they can take to try and release that control and to feel the alignment and to get into flow?
I think that's it. It's get into alignment, is stop, breathe, be present, and just listen. I I always say your intuition is a lot quieter than the monkey mind, and it's always from love, and it's just a lot calmer, and it feels calmer in your body. And the more you listen, it's like when you throw a rock in the ocean. You don't know what that, you're not hearing it because of the ocean of everything else, all the thoughts, everything going on. But once you tune in to what that sounds like, you will hear it above everything else. And so it doesn't matter what's going on. If you know what your intuition sounds and feels like, you will always hear that above everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So if your egoic mind is raging and having a tantrum and talking about all the things you should do, by coming back to the present moment and just breathing, you'll hear that little ting of your intuition and go, okay, that's where I'm supposed to be. And then when you're in alignment, that's where you move.
And what about the people who are starting to tap into that and they hear it and they have that deep feeling inside of, oh gosh, I hear the calling. I know that I want to follow it, but I am so scared to follow it and maybe lose what I've already built, or they're afraid of what's going to happen when I do follow this calling.
Um, what I say with that is, like you'd said, like the energy work can definitely be helpful with that, because lots of times we are so conditioned in our society so conditioned. And a lot of that is what that fear is, because our society is awakening, but is based in fear. And so it's about letting that conditioning go, because that's not truth. That's not your soul's truth.
Mhm.
It's just what you've been conditioned to believe. But man, can it rage.
It sure can. It sure can. And so, with the work you do, is this something that you help people move through? Is overcoming these limiting beliefs and understanding what the conditioning is versus what their soul's calling is?
Yeah, actually, what I was guided to call it is it's called soul alignment sessions. And so I connect with your soul and higher guidance, and we follow a beautiful little path that's organically carved out by your soul, step by step. And so each step reveals the next one. So I don't even know what's going to come,
Mhm.
and I don't even know what comes out of my mouth most times. Um, but we just follow that. And a lot of that is healing that conditioning, which some majority comes from wounds. And that's not a bad thing. And I don't want to sound, we are wounded people who are raised by wounded people in a wounded society. So everyone's got wounds. There's no shame in that. There's no guilt in that. There's no should have known better or anything like that. And then, like we are talking about empaths, that is because, like you said, lots of times we don't even know that we're that. And we don't know that we're taking on other people's stuff. And so all of that needs to be kind of unpacked and let go of. And then it's easier to follow your path. And so the energy healing has been huge for me.
Mm-hmm. So I one of my favorite things about just speaking with other people in general is hearing little parts when they speak of like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And something you just said that I would like to highlight is the path unfolds along the way. So for a lot of people, myself included, when I was thinking of starting my own business, a lot of it was very much so in my head and just thinking of what I wanted to do, what I wanted to do. And I spent months in my head of thinking what I wanted to do before I took any action. And now that I've started to take action, things are moving so much quicker. And for you, when you started your business, what are a few of the first action steps you took that started to build the momentum for the path to continue to reveal itself?
My path was very much intertwined with the grieving process on all levels, because part of letting go of that conditioning is letting go of the illusion of control.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a grieving process in itself. Every time you have to give up an egoic part of yourself, or a part that you feel was so essential to who you are, brings up a grieving process. So not only the big loss, but I've had to lose so many parts of myself that I thought were essential, but were not. They were conditioned parts of me, or wounded parts of me, things like that. And so, sorry, got lost now on your question. What it was again?
No, that was a beautiful answer. I think
Okay.
just the second part would be, but that's such a good point to bring up too. When you are releasing control and you are shedding layers of yourself, there 100% is a grieving process. And for everybody to just know that that's okay, that's part of it. And it is part of the expansion of who you are becoming, is releasing those layers. The second part to the question was just, what were some of the first steps you took when you were breaking out and building your own business that helped you build that momentum to keep going?
Okay. Yeah, I knew there was a point to that one. I think with that, like intertwined with that, was every time I shed those layers, I became more in alignment with myself. And like I said, as part of keeping my wounded self feeling safe, there was like these mile markers where I would go, I'll go this far, but I'm not going to go any further than that. And that was almost like a safety comfort. But then I get to that point, and I'm like, oh, I can go farther than that. And those were maybe the layers that I was shedding. I don't know. I haven't spent time thinking about that, but it was like I couldn't do it all at once. Like I couldn't look at the whole, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It was taking it bit by bit by bit.
So, as this is also really cool because as you're shedding layers and you are starting to take action and build that momentum, you're also building new beliefs within yourself and really feeling that, oh my gosh, I am capable of so much more. And as you build those new beliefs, they stack on top of each other. And I think they help the momentum really go a bit quicker. And so, what would you say compared to who you were to now? What are some beliefs that you really hold true now?
I'm worthy.
Mm,
I'm a divine being of light.
mm-hmm,
I am enough. I can do anything that I want to do. I am aligned with my true self and my truths. Those are the basic ones. And of course, those are layers of unpacking to do. But those are the ones that are kind of the foundational foundations for me. And so whenever I'm facing something or I'm going through something and those old voices come up, those are the ones that I've reprogrammed into me that I am, and I'm worthy is, and I'm enough is probably the bigger ones.
absolutely, because those just with those two foundational beliefs, that helps you really do anything that you want to do. And you're like, I am capable. I'm worthy. I can do this. Why not? And so for people who aren't quite there yet, but they're pretty close and they're like, I do feel that I'm worthy, but then all of those other thoughts come up. When those thoughts do come up for them of maybe I don't fully believe this belief yet, what advice would you give them to work through that?
I, that's where again I say the energy healing was huge for me because people, affirmations definitely help, but it's not helpful if you have a little voice inside saying, I don't know if I can swear, but that's BS.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you're counteracting that. Besides the fact that because so many of our beliefs are conditioned, they're they're repeated on autopilot for like thousands of times a day.
Mm-hmm.
So you say, I am worthy in the mirror in the morning, which is beautiful and wonderful, but then 999 more times during the day, you've told yourself how many ways you're not worthy. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like they can help, but it definitely energetically you have to shift. And even when you think you've got it, there's so many times that I've done for myself and others where I call them like the dust bunnies, and the energy just lives in your energy field still. Like it doesn't feel as strong, but it still kind of gets you or stops you in your tracks a little bit. Maybe it doesn't hold you back, but still kind of like that voice is still there. Um, and that fear is still there, right? Because that's that wounded egoic self. And so the fear still feels it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I the energy healing for me has been huge because it helps to release that those little dust bunnies and clear it out so that I can truly know my truth.
Mm-hmm. For those people who may be watching or listening who aren't 100% sure what energy healing looks like, and it can look different to everybody, but from your viewpoint and from the work you've done, could you just give a brief overview of what you mean when you say energy healing?
Sure. So there's lots of different types, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
The energy healing that I do, I work with the flower essences, gem essences, and acupressure points in the body, and I work with them energetically. And um, so what I do is if there's emotions that are blocked, energy that's being held, this is where a lot of that somatic work comes into. And with the flower essences, which is what I mainly work with, that comes up the most often, is we just clear out whatever that energy is. So I guess the best way to describe it in more typical terms is your energy gets blocked if you are a, a hose flowing water is in alignment. And anytime we experience trauma, anytime we hold on to energy, anytime something doesn't get resolved in us, it's like putting kinks in the hose.
Mm-hmm.
and so the water can't flow. And so when we do energy healing, we unkink that so that the water can flow a little bit nicer.
Love this. I love all of the like the visual analogies that you've brought to this. I think that really helps people just visualize it for themselves of, oh, okay, this is what's meant by that. And for those of you watching or listening, going down an energy healing path is something that is quite profound and has shifted my life greatly. There will definitely be future podcast episodes on that and the tools that you can use. And so, Tara, to wrap things up, let's do, some just advice that you would give everyone listening, and then where we can find you, where people can find you to tap into your work and see, if maybe they would like a healing session with you.
For sure. Uh, so I guess my biggest piece of information or my biggest pass on is that your soul knows. You absolutely know 100% what's right for you. And it's not up to anyone else other than you. And at a core level, that's, I guess, the takeaway.
I love that.
Uh, and the healing, or you can find me on social media and everything. And my website is tswlifecoaching.com. And funny, because I'm just thinking with one of your questions, that's how I tiptoed my way into it, because it was life coaching. But I definitely am not doing the typical life coaching now. Like, I do way more of the spiritual work.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my kind of tiptoeing into it part that we were talking about earlier. But yeah, I'm on all socials, and I do, like I said, the flower essences, the gem essences, and acupressure points in the body. And I post every week. I do on Wednesdays, which today is, in case whenever you put it out. I do a video for the collective, because a lot of awakening empaths are really drawn to my work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it tends to be more healing for empaths, but it's a sample of what I do, and it's for everybody to use, and it's my offering to the awakening souls.
That's so beautiful. I would definitely love to check that out. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I feel like it flowed so naturally. Your story is very inspiring, and it's such an example of what happens when you do start listening to those inner nudges. So, thank you so much for sharing that all with us. It's been a lovely conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me. It has been a fun conversation. I so appreciate it.